This is Amazon's choice for a cheap wireless gaming mouse. It cost me just £13.59 shipped next day. That's a frankly insane amount of money to spend on an entire wireless gaming mouse. But is it actually any good? Well, let's find out. Inside the box, you pretty much just get the mouse. That's it. No batteries included, no USB cables, just the mouse. Okay, so for the price, that's kind of fine. I mean, on the bottom you will find the battery compartment, which requires two AA batteries and includes a place for the, quite frankly, weird shade of blue USB dongle. The sensor is offset to the side. What sensor? Who knows? But it can do up to 4800 dpi. Oh, that's not special? Oh. Well, there you go. The mouse itself has a pretty typical gaming mouse shape. Sharp edges everywhere, multiple textures, the works. It's not too offensive, and once it's in your hand, I don't think you'll mind it that much either. My relatively large hands fit this pretty well, with my thumb landing on this sniper button. In fact, it actually has a little crosshair on it. Keep that in mind for later. The two side buttons are pretty well placed, and actually this has a really nice touch that I'd like to see on more mice. The rear side button has little bumps on it so you can really easily tell which button it is you're pressing. If it feels smooth, it's the front one. If it's bumpy, it's the rear one. That's actually really good. What's also pretty good is the texture grip on the sides. A lot of mice, especially the ones that I've checked out recently, have just been like plain, flat, really not very grippy sides. This texture side makes it a lot easier to hold on to. It does feel like a palm grip mouse to me, although the rear end is relatively low and relatively short, so you could hybrid or claw grip it if you want. On the top you'll find the two DPI buttons and a pretty chintzy scroll wheel, and of course your left and right click buttons. One thing that's absent from the whole mouse is a port. While this is a wireless mouse, it's pretty common to find a USB port on the front for charging or just wired usage. This TechteamGB mouse is devoid of that option. It makes sense, I guess. I mean, why spend the money on a port, PCB space, and a charging circuit and a cable on the box when you can just sell it for as cheap as this thing is? It is a bit of a shame though. Oh, and one other thing that they've skimped on is the lighting. They went to the effort of making a 3-position power switch on the bottom with left for just normal on and right for on with lights. In fact, the Amazon listing shows this as having full lighting down the side of the mouse with what maybe looks like a battery meter. I mean, this is really sort of expectations versus reality, because what you get here is a single blue LED somewhere near the scroll wheel. That sort of shines through the wheel and maybe through two of the slats on the other side of the mouse, but you don't get anything through the side facing you, and certainly no battery monitoring. You'll just have to know when the batteries are dying. Amazing. Something that you might find a bit of a limiting factor here is the weight. My scales put this at 137 grams with two AA batteries. That makes it fairly heavy. It's functionally the same weight as a fully loaded G502, but without any of the customizations. It's 137 grams whether you like it or not. That's going to make, flicking this in the true esports fashion a little difficult. Although I'm expecting some other issues that might make that not so much of a problem anyway. It will mean that you will sort of get fatigue faster than a lighter mouse, and especially if you're like 13 and buying this because it's the cheapest wireless mouse you can find on Amazon that's highly rated, you're going to struggle a fair bit with this one. One of the other big limitations of this black box wireless solution is that it only runs at 500 Hz polling rate. That means that you'll get less smooth tracking. It'll take a minimum of 2 milliseconds to report a click, although more likely at least 4. Although we'll actually come to the latency testing in a minute. So that's less than ideal. Now, some people who are much more talented than I am do prefer playing at 500 Hz even on wired mice, so it's clearly not the end of the world, but pretty much every mouse, from a mainstream brand for the last 10 years has done at least 1000 Hz, with some of the newer ones running at 4000 or even 8000 Hz. Again, you get what you pay for here. Before we dive too far into this thing, I want to show you inside it. There are only 3 screws on the bottom, one under this absolutely tiny PTFE skate, and 2 in the battery compartment, and then the shell basically just pops in half. You'll need to disconnect this rather feisty ribbon cable to fully separate them, but once you do, you'll realise that this is using Huano blue shell switches, which is actually pretty good. It's far from today's modern optical switches that I quite like, but for a mechanical switch, it really isn't a bad choice. There's actually Huano switches all over here, although these blue shell ones are rated for an impressive 20 million clicks each, so I doubt that the switches will be the thing that fails first on this. What might is this tiny little potted microcontroller. It's both the processor and the wireless communication controller, which, while not overly uncommon, isn't exactly high-end. The fact that it's potted is generally a bad sign too, and of course, since this can only run at 500 Hz, that kind of says all you need to know. This isn't a high-end chip under there. It's the cheapest that they could find that will do what they need it to do. When it comes to the latency, this is pretty interesting. Testing with my new open source latency testing tool, available at osrtt.com, by the way, the TechNet comes in at 22 milliseconds of latency. That's okay, I guess. It's about as fast, actually slightly slower, than my Logitech MX Master 3. But that's not exactly a gaming mouse. The Logitech G703 ran at less than half of that at 8.7 milliseconds, so it's safe to say that you aren't going to be getting the first shot off in any competitive environments. It isn't the worst, I guess. I mean, if I'm honest, I was expecting it to be much, much worse than that, so I guess it beat my expectations. That doesn't make it any good though. Okay, let's actually give this a go at gaming and we'll see what it's like. So we're in a bit of Rainbow Six Siege, and I mean, I'm kind of surprised. It's doing all right. It's hardly your next, pro gaming mouse, but for something basic just to get going, it seems okay, at least currently. But I think we'll see how that plays out. Can I sneak that? I can. Wonderful. There's one. Oh, someone behind me. So here's a weird thing. You know that sniper button that I mentioned? It's not a sniper button, it's a double fire button. See? I'm only gonna press the button on the side, right? Pressing the button on the side, and there you go, there's a double press. Someone outside, double press, quadruple press, alright. Yeah, the sniper button on the side is only a double left click button, which is a bit of an odd choice. No, that was a triple click. Yeah, it's triple clicking. That's even weirder. Maybe I shouldn't have been pressing the triple click button exclusively. Okay, let me give this a bit more of a fair shot, and I won't bother using the triple click button that my thumb actively rests on, and I'll actually use it like a proper mouse. Something I am noticing is that the actuation, like the distance between my finger touching, especially the right click, and me actually actuating the right click is quite large. There's quite a lot of distance there, which can make actually hitting right click and, in this case aiming, a bit of a slow process. I'm also finding that the tracking is a little off. I think it feels like acceleration. It's hard to say for sure, but it feels like the DPI is like dynamically changing, which it shouldn't be. I've set it to the lowest setting possible, but that's what it feels like. While I can't say that I am exactly a pro of, you know, FPS games by any stretch of the imagination, I'm definitely putting in a lot more effort into trying to, you know, line up shots and things here than I otherwise would on a, what I might call more competent mouse. Like, to be clear, I'm still playing the game, I'm still, you know, hitting my shots, but it's definitely more difficult to do so accurately than perhaps I would like. Do you know, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, but it's also not good. There's been a few moments where some of my movements have been really slow to respond, like, you know, moving the mouse through like honey, but then some of them, like, oh no, that was just straight hitch. That's just straight hitching. I moved the mouse and the cursor didn't, or you know, my character didn't move. I had that downstairs when I did some testing earlier. Had that before, and there it goes again. I attributed that to the surface I was playing on, but even now on a proper, you know, this is a Logitech mouse mat, it's not happy. I was playing on actually the Gamers Nexus soft mouse mat downstairs, and I thought maybe it's soft, maybe because it's you know, got a pattern on it. It was not happy about that, but no, it's actively hitching. Yeah, even on the lowest DPI setting, this is still A, way too sensitive for me, and B, it's not tracking well at all. It's not a great experience. I am playing the game and I'm, you know, doing okay. That's 4 headshots in a row, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to rely on this in any sort of competitive setting. Yeah, this is just more difficult than it needs to be. I think the problem is that my initial expectations for this were pretty low. I then used it a little bit, tested it out, did the latency testing, and kind of, it rose in my expectations a touch. And now that I'm actually playing on it properly, you know, with a proper mouse pad, all this sort of stuff, my expectations have been sort of met, and then it's even worse than I thought it would be. Yeah, like, I'm sure that you can play games with it. I've demonstrated that, in fact. Whether you would want to is a different matter. So yeah, this isn't what I would call great. On the surface it feels fine, it tracks mostly okay when you just get out of the box, and latency isn't horrific, but as soon as you start pushing it, you quickly find the problems. The hitching is by far the biggest problem that I have with this. That's where you move the mouse, but the sensor doesn't recognize that movement, and then, you know, it suddenly kicks back in, and it just feels horrible. It will really put you off and sort of ruin your game. The latency isn't great either, nor is the weird acceleration making it just really difficult to actually aim with it. While I understand that a wireless gaming mouse from a proper gaming brand is literally twice the price of this, the SteelSeries Rival 3 wireless is probably the best bet there, that will actually track well, has customizable DPI settings, and is rated for 60 million clicks, and well, the build quality of this isn't too bad, but it's probably a little bit better. It even supports Bluetooth too for a bit of extra usefulness. Personally, if I only had 20 quid or so for a mouse, I'd get the wired version of that Rival 3, a mouse that I like quite a lot and have used the previous model for a fair while. That way you get all of the benefits of the proper brand, a good sensor, good microcontroller, and reliable connection, and you still don't break the bank. Of course, those are my thoughts, but I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. What do you think about this absolutely insanely cheap piece of almost e-waste? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Otherwise, that is kind of it. I will leave a link to this in the description if you're interested, as well as that Rival 3 wireless if you're willing to step up the price. Admittedly double, but still not an insane amount of money, and I think a lot better for the experience. Otherwise, if you want to pick up an open source latency testing tool, I'm slowly making more of those available, so head to osrtt.com and check them out there. Otherwise, you can hit the subscribe button for more videos like this one. You can also check out plenty of other videos on the end cards if you're interested, and if you want to support the channel, you can use some of the links in the description, support through YouTube, Patreon, or pick up a hoodie or t-shirt like this one, or a load of other designs that I made myself. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all in the next video.